civil law. People who do it should be placed under arrest and serve time in jail, because there's a very good chance that they're forcing someone to commit suicide. And this is what happened in that particular case. I had a close acquaintance who was ordained priest, and he was suffered from moderate bipolar condition. It developed stronger after he became a priest under the pressure. And he went to one of our magic elders, who told him that, well, you can't go to a psychiatrist because they're demonic. This is a demonic possession. So all you can do is pray and fast. And then the elder told his children, don't listen to your father no matter what he tells you, because he's possessed by demons. So now the children are terrified of their father and won't go close to him. And the great wonder is that the man hasn't committed suicide. Yes. Whereas under proper medication, he could have functioned in a fairly normal way. Another instance where a Russian woman was brought to the monastery in great despair and distress. And somebody had suggested she come and talk to us because she wasn't allowed to take communion until the day of her death. Because as a 15-year-old girl in a Komsomol camp, communist youth camp, she'd become pregnant, and the commissar simply put her in a car and sent her to an abortion clinic. So she converted after the counter-revolution, and went to Pachayev Monastery to confession, and one of these, what the late great patriarch Alexei called teeny bopper elders, told her that because she'd had an abortion, she couldn't take communion until the day of her death. And so she came, and we read a prayer to release her from the epithemia of a cuckoo priest, and told her to go ahead and take communion. And her whole countenance transformed. Now, really, if a woman came and said that I had an abortion because I didn't want stretch marks, but if a commissar threw her in a car and told her to go to an abortion clinic, I guess, that's not the same thing. And yet sometimes we become so legalistic and bound up in legalism that we do these horrible things to people. Another incident where somebody who was ordained deacon about the same time I was, and another friend who was also ordained deacon around the same time, we heard that one of our acquaintances had attempted suicide, a married deacon. So we went to hospital to see him, and after talking to him for a while, we found out the problem. He finally broke down and said, well, look, I said, I'm gay and I can't have sexual relations with my wife. So, why did you get married then? Or why didn't you talk it over with the woman first? Well, I went to the bishop for confession, and I told him all about it, and he said, oh, just get married and it'll go away. As soon as you get married, you won't be gay. So it's just fine. Well, of course, he almost committed suicide because of it, because that's not how it works. And this is why we need to look at what we're doing in Orthodox psychotherapy. I'm a little concerned with the context and the idea of Orthodox psychotherapy, because there's a danger of applying an ideology to psychotherapy, and of trying to create an orthodox ideology of psychotherapy, which doesn't exist, never has existed. But in our Western scholastic minds, we're liable to start approaching this from the point of view of ideologies. And it's always very dangerous. And when we look at the healing of the inner person, I want to talk first of all now about the prayer rope and how it figures into Orthodox psychotherapy, properly speaking. Because it's misused very often. I mean, some of you may have seen, you get converts who come in with a prayer rope that's long enough you could lasso buffalo with it or something. And they're always holding it up, saying, look, everybody, I'm saying my prayer rope. Hey, look at the knots I'm shooting. And we find this very often. It's being used in public, but it's not supposed to be used in public. But it's also being misused because people think if they swing enough knots, they'll be able to walk on water. And we have novices drowning every year. So, people come and they're going to swing enough knots and have complete union with God in 3 weeks, 10 easy steps, or 12 steps, I suppose. Confession is a spiritual detox. It isn't looking for some way to punish somebody. Confession is often used by some priests as a way to control and manipulate their parishes, to become absolute spiritual dictators and spiritually abuse their parishioners. We find some priests nowadays who tell somebody If you move and you're going to go to a different parish, you have to get as a layperson, you have to get a canonical release to go to a different parish. Yeah, can you imagine telling an old Russian about that? Or they'll say you can't even visit a different Orthodox church without a special dispensation from your parish priest. Well, it's very clear that we have some very tragic situations within the Orthodox Church, and they deal with how we deal with human beings. Now, I'd like to talk about the prayer rope as a way of introducing a person to what might be an Orthodox concept of psychotherapy. And that is, you know, this is called a chotki, which means to count. Didn't fall from heaven. No saint appeared and said, here guys, use this. They used it to count sheep with in early times. Shepherds would use them. You know, how many sheep went out, how many sheep came back in. Didn't know mathematics. The Chinese stuck on little rods and made the first computer out of a calculator. This is the root of the abacus. And everybody uses them to count, to keep count, to keep track. It happens that people notice that it will also help you to focus and concentrate. It wasn't about, I'm going to do 1,000 knots. Not. Pray, but not. And people lost track of it. What the Holy Fathers told us in the prayer of the guarding of the mind, they're very interesting because from a neurobiological point of view, they knew exactly what they were talking about, and that's quite amazing for the first 4 centuries. And remember, in Egyptian monasticism, Manichaean monasticism was there before Christian monasticism was. And there was always this back and forth play between Manichaeism and Orthodox monasticism, and some interplay and some interblending. And we still ended up with some Manichaean ideas within ascetic writings in the church. But the use of the prayer rope was very clearly something that people understood. Because they said, when a stimulus enters the mind, it's nothing. Don't pay attention. It's not even really a temptation so much. But then stimulus starts to work its way through the mind, and we become aware that it's there. We become cognizant. We analyze it. We take a decision about it, whether to entertain it or try to push it back. And at some point, we start to take pleasure in it, and at the moment we take pleasure in it, it's sin. If you commit adultery, not if you're tempted by adultery, but if you commit adultery in your mind, it's a sin. Now, I want to say what actually happens in the brain. Just a small schematic, not anything too technical. But when a stimulus enters the brain, that's sort of a brain, we've got this little area down here called the limbic region of the R complex. Stimulus enters the brain, goes into the hypothalamus region. And then the hypothalamus sends an instant signal to the amygdala region of the brain. And this is so you can react without thinking. In case you see something wiggling along the pathway and you say, oh my goodness, that's a cobra. Maybe it's a cobra. Yeah, it's a cobra. If it bites me, I'll die. You know, I better step back. By then, the cobra's already eaten you for lunch. But if you react instantly and step back, but then the same stimulus starts to go through the so-called neocortex of the brain. And here we begin to take cognizance in it. The medial prefrontal cortex, where we kind of set it in a context in relationship to social and moral issues and things. It goes into the frontal lobe here, basically. And that's where we can put the brakes on for instant gratification, or where we decide whether to accept or not. Because this part of the brain is actually part of the limbic region. We have a bidirectional neural system here. They interact with each other. This part of the brain is screaming, gratification, gratification, and this one's screaming, no, that's inappropriate, don't do it. And at this point, we're training ourselves to bring our conscience into it and respond to our conscience. Now, see, one of the problems with teenagers is this frontal lobe isn't myelinated yet. The myelin sheathing isn't on the neurons until they're about 22 or 23. That's why teenage boys are psychotic and teenage girls are neurotic. So this is what we're doing with the prayer rope now, isn't it? See, when it first comes into the brain, it's nothing. It's not a temptation.